U.S. President Joe Biden has urged G20 leaders to back Ukraine's sovereignty after allowing Ukraine to use its missiles to strike deep within Russian territory. Moscow has accused Biden of fueling the war. Our next story analyzes the big shift in U.S. policy coming just months before Trump's return to power.
The line has been crossed. Kyiv now has the green light to strike inside Russia. The US is no longer just supplying weapons. It's reshaping the battlefield. ATACMs missiles in Ukraine's arsenal can target Russia's targets. Moscow warns this is war. On the 1,000th day of the Russia-Ukraine war, a significant shift intensifies the stakes. Kyiv has persistently lobbied for these weapons, which can strike deep into Russian territory. Ukraine argues that the missiles are crucial for countering Russian airstrikes that have devastated towns, energy infrastructure, and frontline positions. But Moscow sees this as a provocation, with President Putin previously warning that such actions would amount to NATO entering a direct war with Russia.
So this is not a question of whether or not to allow the Ukrainian regime to strike Russia with these weapons. It is a decision on whether NATO countries are directly involved in the military conflict or not. If that decision is made, it will mean nothing less than the direct participation of NATO countries, the United States, European countries, in the war in Ukraine.
But will these American missiles be the game changer for Kyiv? Well, Moscow has already moved much of its air power further inside its borders, beyond the missile's range. Pentagon previously acknowledged that 90% Russian planes which are attacking Ukraine are at airports beyond the range of ATACMs.
Why I'm not, opening a champagne just yet is probably because we don't know the actual numbers of how many rockets Ukrainians do have. So the question is, are they provided enough rockets that would make a difference in the battlefield?
It does make a real difference if you can hit Russian supply lines and the Russian and Russian troop gatherings inside Russia. Then you are hugely limiting Russia's ability to mobilize against you and to attack. So it's an enormous step. The Ukrainians are hugely relieved, but it's not a game changer as far as the war is concerned.
This decision comes as Biden faces mounting pressure to bolster Ukraine's position ahead of President-elect Donald Trump's return to the White House. Trump has pledged to end the war in a day. Meanwhile, North Korean troops reportedly reinforce Russia, adding another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Biden's gamble seeks to tip the scales in Ukraine's favor, but at what cost? As tensions soar, the world edges closer to a direct US-Russia confrontation. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Let's now talk to our correspondent Susan Teherani, who's joining us live from the United Nations headquarters in New York. Hi, Susan. What are some of the reactions you are getting, especially from Team Trump, over Biden's move allowing Zelensky to use American missiles on Russian territory?
Yeah, Eric, while we haven't heard from the president-elect himself, there are a lot of opinions coming from his cabinet. RFK Jr. was one of the first to say that the foreign policy apparatus here in the United States didn't name Biden, wants to get America into World War III before Donald Trump is inaugurated. Biden launching, quote, whole new war before leaving office. This is according to another Trump ally. Really, Elon Musk also chimed in. He said, quote unquote, true on his platform X when Mike Lee, a Republican senator from Utah said, quote unquote, libs love war. The concern here is this move causes an escalation with Russia on the one hand, and then the lack of clarity on whether or not it would help Ukraine win the war on the other hand has caused a lot of concern on, the new administration going into office, how they're going to deal with the situation now.
Susan, I understand you are at the United Nations headquarters, and I also understand that the United Nations Security Council did hold a meeting. Do we know what was resolved or discussed at the meeting on the 1,000 days of Russia-Ukraine war?
So right now, the United Nations Security Council is meeting, getting a briefing on the war in Gaza. That meeting that you're referring to is in the afternoon, in a few hours from now. It's a high-level meeting. Britain is the president of the Security Council for this month, and so we do have the British Foreign Secretary right now at the Security Council. We also have Ukraine's new foreign minister, which will be taking part in that meeting as well. We are expected to hear from Rosemary DiCarlo, the UN official, about the humanitarian crisis that the Russia-Ukraine war has caused for many, notably also educational institutions. There are many children and youth in Ukraine and Russia that aren't going to school right now because of this war. And then, of course, more than 12,000 people have died. So, while some council members are expected to talk for sort of a negotiated settlement, a peaceful resolution, there's no doubt the elephant in the room is going to be Biden's decision to lift those restrictions on Ukraine using long-range missiles in Russian territory. Just one thing I do want to note, that Russia has been using the long-range missiles of its own in Ukrainian territory as well.
All right, Susan, we'll have to leave it there. Susan Teherani is our correspondent in New York. She's at the United Nations headquarters. Thank you, Susan. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.